The China International Optoelectronics Expo hosts the largest gathering of Chinese night vision and thermal imaging equipment manufacturers, so naturally, I had to go. Alright, a little disclaimer before we begin. ADNV sponsored this trip with flight tickets and a hotel room. However, they do not have any input or control over the creation of this video, and all opinions you see in this video are of my own. Also, no money of any kind changed hands, and all the ADNV devices you see me own are paid for using my own money at their full retail price. Alright, let's begin. Alright, so we are at the Night Vision and Thermals Pavilion of the CIOE Expo, and ADNV is right there. Let's go take a look at them first. Alright, so interesting. This looks to me like some kind of a fusion driver's aid, and yeah, the system's right here. A very interesting mode of fusion there. You have a panoramic view of what's outside or in front of the vehicle. You have low light sensors to the sides and a hybrid, or rather fusion, thermal and low light sensor in the middle. Interesting. Here are the specs. And yeah. Interesting system. Looks like they got a darkroom ready here too. Looks like the same darkroom we saw at their Beijing headquarters. Pretty interesting. We're gonna go in there and take a look later. And their advanced fusion binocular with, if I remember correctly, that's the one with the HD sensor. Yep, it is. And we got some of their rifle scopes. Interesting, yep, and still using the 1-inch 800 by 600 sensor. Let's take a look at those. Very nice. Yeah, let's go look at some more exciting stuff. And here we are. Yep, here's their PSQ20 equivalent, the GF20. As you know, 1-inch sensor with a 640 by 512 thermal fusion. And now, the GF31 we're all familiar with. I'll have a review on this really soon. But yeah, in general, very, very cool devices. And quite capable too, as we've seen. Alright, let's see what else they have on offer. And here's something we're all familiar with. The G14 SE with the 2/3 inch sensor. Yep, here's the unit by itself and mounted with a bino bridge. Very nice. Alright, let's move around the back and let's see if we can find their G14P2, and we can. Very nice little unit here. And this is it with the bino bridge. Look at that massive front lens element. f1.05, yep, that's what we like to see. Awesome, let's see what else they have. Oh, looks like they have a sensor module exhibit right here. Alright, now let's look at ADNV's sensor modules. So first up over here, we have a 2/3 inch sensor module
which I think is the one that they use in the G14 SE, and here it is. Nice little compact thing. Sensor is actually pretty small. Well, a lot smaller than my thumbnail, that's for sure. And yeah, you have a sensor board, you have an ASIC and display driving board, and yeah, pretty nice. And here I think we have their their 1-inch sensor. That's probably the one used in their G14P P2, and yeah, this is the 2/3 inch. This is the 1-inch. If you're wondering why there's such a significant performance difference between their 1-inch, their P2 and their SE, which uses the 2/3 inch, that's why. Look at how much more massive the 1-inch sensor is. Thumbnail for comparison. Look at that. All right, interesting. Okay, and this is their 2nd generation of 1-inch sensor, which I assume is the difference between the G14P and P2. And interesting. It looks like the the photodiode material is different too, or whatever that is, because there's a significant hue difference in the sensor. All right, so we have gotten a little bit of confirmation on why there's a difference in the color of the imaging surface between the 1st generation ADNV 1-inch sensor and the 2nd generation. That's because the 1st generation is front side illuminated and the 2nd generation is backside illuminated, which means that the 1st generation, there's on top of the photosensitive photodiode layer, there's also a layer of wiring, which is one of the limitations of the front side illuminated method of making sensors, of making CMOS sensors, is that not all of the light which the sensor receives goes through to the photodiode. A bit of it will be reflected by the front side wiring, which is why you see light being reflected, golden light being reflected. That's because the wiring on the sensor is reflecting a bit of it back. Meanwhile, on a backside illuminated sensor, all of that wiring, readout circuitry, all of that is on the backside of the photodiode, which means all of the light going onto the sensor goes through the photodiode, which means all of the light flux that is effectively hitting the sensor has a chance of being transduced by the photodiode into electrical signal. This is why you only see the photodiode color and none of that gold reflection. That's pretty interesting indeed. And this should also mean that the 2nd generation sensor should have much better performance versus the 1st generation. So yeah, definitely throw away your G14P and buy the G14P too. So guys, turns out ADNV also has a Hoffman machine here. Yeah, courtesy of Matrix, who also provided the Lucie, thanks to him. Let's see how the ADNV devices perform here. Why not? Let's do it. Now we are at Guide Infrared's pavilion. And it looks like they have a 2K 10 micron sensor right here. Their demonstration display, and I can see that they have a device right up there. Let's see if we can get, and I can actually see myself on the screen right now. Yep, I'm there. That's nice. That's really interesting. It's such a high-resolution 2K thermal sensor. Now let's see what they have. All right, we got some really interesting EO turrets here, electro-optical turrets. Yeah, we can all guess where what kind of devices or vehicles these go on. Interesting. Yep, and we got something that looks like it came straight out of the Fallout universe here. Look at that, that's quite aesthetic, not gonna lie. Stainless steel thermals. And now this is interesting. So up here we have their, let's see, yeah, medium wave infrared cooled sensors over here. So these are all sensors that require active cooling, and I see Stirling coolers over here. That's really interesting. And we actually got some high resolution thermals here. Yeah, these are all pretty high resolution. We are seeing resolutions of 1280 by 1024. in devices as small as this. But yeah, it requires active cooling, and we can see like a Sterling cooler in the, in the rear. And on the bottom, we have their uncooled sensors. These are their long-wave infrared sensors, and here we see the ubiquitous, 256 by 192 12 micron sensor. That's basically the ones you see in the phone imagers, the cheap scopes, everything. Let's see. We also have a smaller module over here. Well, I mean a relatively larger small module over here. That is, the ubiquitous 384 by 288 and the 640 by 512 format. Interesting. All right, and now we have this mid-series uncooled imaging infrared cores. Interesting. So I guess these are all their imaging modules. And now we have just their detectors. Nice. Ceramic packaging, 12 micron, HD 1280 by 1024. That's what we like to see. It's pretty big though. Is that entire area the imaging surface? That's interesting. Yeah. And all the way down to the smallest one, the 256 by 192, ubiquitous in all the consumer devices. Interesting. All right, now let's look at their finished devices. And these are interesting. You have a huge handheld thermometer here. It's apparently used for firefighting. Interesting. You have a massive camcorder over here, a camcorder-like device. I wonder what the resolution is. 请问这些机器的这个传感器的分辨率都多少了？可以跟你分开介绍一下。哦，好呀。出镜吗？还是你不用出镜？我不用出镜，我不用出镜。对，是的。这是一个640的非制冷的。All right, so this is an uncooled sensor and 640 by 512. 这是一个地沟汞制冷的320。哦，这是制冷的。对。然后不过它分辨率就只有320。320。320、240是吗？对。So this is a cooled sensor that explains the bulk, but the resolution is only 320 by 240. But you're probably going to get a lot of really good NETD here, being a cool MWIR sensor. And what's this mirrorless camera looking thing? 目前非制冷在民用产品应用最高的1280乘 Oh, and now this is their uncooled 1280 by 1024 device that looks like a DSLR or mirrorless camera. And look at that. 这个应用场景大概是什么？就是测量、科研、了解、科研、高精度的。So yeah, this is meant for high precision, thermal measurements. And 它是自动对焦吗？它可以用自动对焦，也可以使用手动对焦，也可以使用屏幕点数对焦。So yeah, and this one actually has autofocus, contrast detect autofocus. It can be triggered by either the shutter or the 它是有快门键吗？有的。所以它也是可以就是半按快门键那个。半按快门键不行，它的逻辑跟单反不一样。哦，跟单了解，所以就是一个它触发对焦就是一个按钮，然后触屏，然后手动调。了解。So yeah, you can trigger the autofocus by either using a dedicated AF on button, or by tapping on the screen to trigger the contrast detect autofocus, or simply just a manual focusing using the focus ring on the left. That's interesting. That's a really nice device. 好，感谢介绍。Yeah, we got a rifle scope set up here. Interesting. 看一下你们比较实用的这个机器。这个就是那个 OK 好前串式。Right, so this is like a clip-on thermal scope. You clip it on to the front of a existing rifle op that you have. And does it have a 分辨率是多少来？这个我们做了3个版本。它现在这里这一款是一个640的，我们同时还做了400×300的，还做了一款1280。Nice, 了解。So yeah, they got 3 versions of this available now. You have anything from HD 1280的 1280 by 1024 all the way down to 640 by 512 and down to 400 by 300. Really interesting. And this is their budget TD series. 带着一个测距模块。Yeah. and it now has a rangefinder module as well. So interesting, and perhaps also really helpful for those who are hunting with it. TD 现在就是说有没有可能就是说有那个 TD 系列可以挂你们的1280机型？
没有，因为 TD 这个定位它是相对比较低端的，它的整个产品线没有人民币没有超过1万块的。
是的。Alright, so unfortunately we won't be seeing a budget 1280 thermal anytime soon. They're not gonna include their 1280 thermal core inside of a device as cheap as the TD series. And over here we have their 这个是分辨率，有效分辨率是多少
？640的。
a 640 by 对，你们的640机芯都是乘以512还是乘以480？
我们这边是乘以512，然后但是在做画面的时候，我们会主动给它做一部分切割。
哦，了解，裁切，了解。Alright, so yeah, also there's 640 by 512. Core in a binocular format with a rangefinder， 这也是测距的嘛？
对，测距模块。
了解 ，really interesting indeed。对，就是说有没有就是说手持的1280？
有的，
机器，了解，好的，谢谢哦。哦，
因为这款它的定位是比较高端的，所以把一个1280的塞进去，然后这样的话。镜头的话，我们可以有35跟50的选择。
了解。Alright, now this is interesting. This is their 1280 by 1024 HD monocular. And the lenses can come in different focal lengths. They have a 35mm option, which is probably the one I prefer. That will let you scan a wide field of view. They have a 35mm and a 50mm version. 这个是50毫米的嘛？
对。
了解。And this is the 50mm version. Really nice, really interesting. The form factor is not too bad either. Yeah, it is a massive lens and quite a significant sensor module, I bet. And this is their TJ series.
是的，然后这款会有一些区别，在于它用了一个双市场的设计，它有一个20毫米。
Oh, and now they have a zoomable lens. So you don't need to worry about getting stuck on one focal length. You now have a TJ series 12也是1280嘛？
这个是640。
哦，了解。
但是它用了一个双市场。
了解。So now you have a 640 by 512. Well, this is not 1280 anymore. This is 640 by 512. Now, but it's 640 by 512 with a variable focal length lens, which means you can zoom in and out, like you see on those targeting pods on jets. So that's interesting. All right, and now we have Guide's thermal drones. These are Guide's industrial thermal drones. Yeah, let's take a look at the optical module. So it looks like we have a visible light module, a thermal module, and a smaller, yeah, it looks like also a visible light module. 但请问这个分辨率是多少来？哦，也是640-512。
对。
Yeah, it's still a 640 by 512 guide thermal module on this drone. And interesting enough, they say that this drone, the drone airframe, the whole drone solution is also, developed, well, manufactured by them. So interesting. It's a thermal drone that's not a DJI or Autel. 那这一款
是老一点，它是一个旗舰机，最大的。
Alright, so this is one of their older flagship modules, flagship drones, and that optical module looks absolutely massive. 那这个的分辨率是？
这个我还没看一下，它应该它是可以更换挂载。
Okay, so the optical module is easily interchangeable, so you can fit whatever sensor module you will want on there.
它可以挂1280的，可以挂640的，可以挂4光明台的，它可以分开。
Nice. So yeah, this is one of the drones that can actually take either a 640 sensor, a 1280 HD sensor, or it can also take a, 4 sensor fusion module, which is really interesting. Oh yeah, and now, nice, and now they're 2K module. 哎，那个2K 的那个把面，那个成像把面差不多多大嘞？
这我还真说不上来，因为这个机器是我们这次第一次往外走。
是的，感觉2K 10微米这么大的话，感觉也一定超过 Super 35了嘛？APS-C 应该都超过了吧？
对，
接近前画幅。
我几乎没有任何的参数。
了解。So yeah, that is an absolutely massive module, and it has to be a 10 micron pixel pitch, 2K resolution. I think it's beyond Super 35 millimeter sensor format size right there. Maybe even approaching full frame. And yeah, let's take a look. 2K thermal, man. Look at that. That is just absolutely interesting. And look at that module. Look at that enormous sensor module there. Let me see if I can zoom in on it. Yeah, look at that massive sensor module. Yeah, you're not putting that on a helmet. Yeah, you are not putting that on a helmet. All right, now let's take a look at SAT-IR. So this company, not really famous, but this is one of the oldest thermal companies inside of China. They're one of the first companies to actually, deliver a thermal product in China that's, assembled in China, but actually they don't make any of their, IR FPAs or, imaging, sensors. So yeah. I mean, first up, front and center in the room, a massive industrial drone with, I think, a thermal module made by them. But, thermal module by them, thermal solution by them, but, they don't actually make the sensor themselves. Interesting. That's such a massive drone. All right. They got more drones here, smaller ones. All, industrial application, agricultural, farming, power grid management, maintenance and repair, oil refineries, all of that. Interesting. And yeah, they don't really have a lot of consumer tactical systems, but they do have a lot of industrial systems. Like look at these camcorder-sized thermal units. And yeah, a lot of devices optimized specifically for industrial use, and I think also beginning to see some devices meant for tactical or military use, like this binocular here. Yep, handheld thermal imaging telescope and all that. So yeah, they're beginning to come into the tactical market. Interesting indeed. Yeah, look at that. It's got a laser rangefinder and everything. All right, and now we're at iRay's booth, and as you know, iRay is one of the most famous, thermal imaging companies anywhere. And yeah, ADNV, their thermal fusion devices, they all use, thermal cores made by iRay. All right, let's go in and take a look. Oh, I see they have cooled medium wave infrared thermals here as well. Again, with a Stirling cooler. Interesting. Yeah, and we're seeing them in 3x512. Oh wait, that's interesting. Okay, so this is the medium wave infrared, cooled sensor, and this is also a cooled sensor but operating in the long wave infrared spectrum. Interesting. And another 640 sensor in the medium wave infrared. Yeah, and that's what it looks like. And here, I bet we have their uncooled long-wave infrared sensors. And yeah, that's basically what it looks like. Yeah, we're seeing resolutions as high as 1280 by 1024. Pretty impressive stuff. All right.
Do you want to buy now?
Sorry, excuse me. All right, looks like we got some new products here. Turing series, never heard of that before. Yeah.
In my opinion, that now you want to know more detail about this product. Am I right?
Yeah, apparently they're. And yeah, apparently their Turing sensors can go all the way up to 1920 by 1080. That's full HD resolution. 是哎，对，这个是你们就是那个全高清的那个机芯对吗？
不，这个是500万的，全高清是这个，是这一款。
哦，了解。
啊，这是1920。
那500什么500万像素，就是2K 吗？
这对，这2K 的。
Okay, so interesting. They have a 2K sensor on here as well, and that's what it looks like. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, iRay is now making 2K sensors as well, so it's not just guide. And now, you know, their Turing series 1920 by 1080 full HD thermal sensor, uncooled, is right up here. And that's what it looks like. Look at that crispness. And it's achieving all that. Do they have an NATD figure? 对，请问你们这个全高清机芯，对，你们这个 Turing 系列那个 NATD 是多少了？
哪个 NETD 的话，
像是全高清的。
全高清这种一般的话，我们是40，小于40。
Nice. So it's achieving all of that with an NETD of just 40 millikelvins. Millikelvin. That's really nice. 哎，对了，你们那个，你们全高清的它是用哪个工艺来？10微米还是8微米还是6微米吗？
一般大部分现在都是12。
12，了解。So yeah, it's still on the 12 micron node. Interesting. Yeah, one of the nicer things about, iRay units is look at how compact their modules are. So whatever, these are definitely small enough to go into something like a GF31. And of course, their famous phone imagers. When you have a T2 or T3 or one of those phone units, that's what it looks like on the inside. Some of their imaging modules. iRay also has a lot of industrial application machines. Nice. A 1280 by 1024, 25 millikelvin NETD, mirrorless camera looking industrial thermal device. Interesting, nice. Some of their more, handheld industrial, mass market, thermal imagers right here. The COVID thermometer style housings. Yeah, some of their vehicle mounted applications. Yep, and more thermal modules. And look at this. Oh, look at this. We have an 8 micron sensor and a 640 by 512 resolution. And look at how tiny they are. I'm just gonna put my thumbnail next to it just to give a size comparison. you now have, 640 by 512 sensors. One's a 12, the bigger one's a 12 micron, the smaller one's an 8 micron. But you now have, 640 by 512 thermal sensors that are smaller than a pinky thumbnail. That's really interesting indeed. And finally, their finished devices, the Finder FH35. That is, yep, pretty ubiquitous now. And interesting, they now have looks like a budget fusion device. You have a 256 by 192 IR module. You have a full color night vision module as well. And let's see, I'm guessing they also have a rangefinder module. Or at least an IR illuminator, but yeah. This is what the aperture looks like. You got a thermal, you got a night vision channel. What's the third lens? Okay, got it. So yeah, okay, so we received clarification. So yeah, you see 3 apertures here on the Discovery DR200 by iRay. The top lens you see, that's the that's the traditional CMOS digital night vision channel. The bottom one you see that's the FPA channel, the thermal channel, which has 256 by 192 resolution, and the one on the left is just an IR illuminator. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And now we have AFO AH25. Hey, 我看一下. Yeah, it's pretty much just a regular thermal scope, AFO 25. Yep, and here we have all of their phone devices. Or rather, yeah, well, they're thermal devices with a handle, thermal module and a handle connected to a phone via USB-C. But these are their integrated devices where they also include a screen. And this is their Flip series, which I kind of appreciate because it looks like a nice, late 2000s camcorder that operates in the thermal spectrum, so which is interesting. Interestingly, iRay now also makes their own ASIC, processors, image processors, and that's what it looks like with a ball grid array, connector. Very interesting. And yeah, the benefit of having such a tiny, 8 micron 640 by 512 sensor is that now a 640 core can be as small as this. Really looking forward to the future of what iRay can do. And alright, now for something more traditional, we are now at the pavilion or the booth of NNVT. Let's go in and take a look. Alright, so interestingly, NNVT is now also making thermals. These are cooled medium wave infrared thermals with also Stirling coolers. Let's take a look at those. Interesting. I got one set up and running right here. I can hear the the Stirling cooler. But yeah, let's look at something actually interesting now. Their image intensifier tubes right here. Let's take a look. GFX 8011D, all of those cryptic names. I have no idea what series they are. But interestingly, look at all the different formats. I see, MX, 10130, 10160. It looks like a 10160 without a fiber optics, inverter. 10160 with an extended fiber optic inverter over here. And look at this. A FOM 2300 image intensifier tube marked NVT7 Plus. Interesting. And of course, something we're all looking forward to hitting the market, EBAPs, electron bombarded active pixel sensors. And these are the sensor modules, and this is the full imaging module lacking the lens. Yeah, really looking forward to how these will come onto the market. Hopefully in a wearable device. That would be cool. And also some specialist applications here. Solar blind, ultraviolet image intensifier tubes. Oh yeah, we also have a 16 millimeter format image intensifier tube, and of course the traditional 18 millimeter. And look at that, a 25 millimeter image intensifier tube. That's a huge imaging area, but you think that's impressive. Look at this, a 40 millimeter one. Imagine an NNVT 7 in that format. That'll be, pretty impressive. But of course, these won't be for, man portable or even for, definitely not for head mountable applications. These are probably for vehicle applications. And we also have an ultra-fast gated image intensifier tube. So this is probably what you want to use for, special, illumination or range gating. And we also have a interesting hybrid low light level image intensifier tube with gallium arsenide photocathode. And of course, we also have a EBAPS low light imaging device, since that's the direction that NNVT is going in for the future apparently. All right, and interestingly, look at what we have here. Let's read it together. Positive spherical low light level image intensifier with gallium arsenide photocathode, meaning Gen 3. NNVT is now making Gen 3 tubes. And now look at this. They also have one in a 10160 format. And okay. Yep, and here they say image inverted spherical third generation image intensifier tube. Aha. They got a brochure for the Gen 3 tubes as well. Let's look at this. Do they have specs? And they do. Alright, let's look at the specs together. Pass some judgment together. Okay, so 64 resolution. Okay, photocathodes. They have 01 and 02, and I actually had a little insider, ask previously, and the 01 and 02 come from different factories within, under the NNVT, flag. So, we have two separate factories in China making Gen 3 tubes, and apparently Plant 02 can make them better. The effective sensitivities is at least 1800, microamperes per lumen. The minimum gain is higher as well. And interestingly, the tubes can be gated, and when auto gating, the effective resolution won't drop below 32 line pairs per millimeter in highlight. Nice. All right, and now we have NNVT's finished devices, and here we have multifunction monocular low light night vision system, and yep, that's their GS610A. We have two of them. Nice. And here we have something interesting. It's just one tube with an on-off switch, and that's a handheld monocular night vision device. That's really interesting. So it looks like now they also have a unit where it's just a tube with lenses on two ends and a 10160 maybe tube inside. I kind of like this form factor, to be honest. But yeah. Also, let's take a look. YNDE, and what's that iSki? Are these thermal? It says do not open, and do not open the lens cap and highlight. So yeah, these are still image intensifier tube night vision devices, but now in a thermal monocular form factor. So that's interesting. Okay, we have a solar blind ultraviolet camera. Again, this is for industrial purposes to monitor the burning of gases. And now we have a fusion telescope. Yep, high performance handheld fusion night vision device. Very nice. And it looks like it has a thermal channel, a visible light channel, and a is that a rangefinder or illuminator? Could be both, but yeah, I already asked. They don't have a battery for this, so we can't power it on and test it out. And now we have a UV intensified digital camera, which is basically they have a image intensifier tube for the UV spectrum inside this device, as a micro four thirds lens mount at the rear, which you can attach to a micro four thirds digital camera like this. And what you can basically use this for, you basically convert a micro four thirds camera into an ultraviolet camera. And this, I asked the representative, this is mainly used for something like crime scene investigation, where you also have a UV illuminator, so you can make things like fingerprints fluoresce, and you can capture it with a micro four thirds camera. Really interesting. Nice. So we also now have sliding telescope lenses, so basically lenses for rifle scopes, and I'm assuming for thermal rifle scopes, looking at how they're all black germanium lenses, and even a zoom lens for thermals. Electrically powered zoom, probably. Look at that. Interesting. Here we have, I think, high precision germanium thermal lens elements. And yeah, we all know, NNVT makes their own microchannel plates, so here they are, showing it off. Really nice. And look at how massive that. Yeah, that's probably just cut straight from a wafer, because I doubt there's any tube with that kind of a large format. So yeah, they probably just fab the microchannel plates on a wafer, and then they just cut them to size for the tubes that we use. All right, and now we're here at the HTI booth, which makes budget thermal devices. One of my first ever thermal was made by them, and apparently their thermals are really popular with irregular combatants all over the world because of how cheap they are. But yeah, let's go take a look at their devices. First off, this massive turret, nice. Vehicle mounted applications, they have those. Nice. They have, automated, person detection systems. Okay. Yeah, this is for automated, this is an automotive thermal imaging night vision system. So yeah, it can identify pedestrians, I guess. It's now highlighting me and identifying me as a hazard. Look at that, nice. Really interesting. But yeah, let's look at their tactical devices, since that's what we're here for. Nice, a hollow sight style thermal scope. A traditional style thermal scope. Multiple of them, really nice. These are the types we see in service with a lot of irregular forces, including the Taliban. And yeah, nice. One of their scopes mounted on a thermal rifle. It's pretty nice. And it looks like now they have 640 by 512 scopes as well. Frame rate is still 25, so that's all right. It looks like it has a laser rangefinder module as well. Let's go take a look around more. Ah, nice. They looks like they have one of those. They're making these binocular style thermal devices now too. Looks like it's also a fusion system now, multiple apertures. Yep, and a lot of their handheld, industrial or mass market thermal imagers here, and their mass market, budget handheld monocular scopes, all here too. And of course, on the really budget end, yeah, we got a phone-like unit. We also have units that you slap onto the USB-C port of your phone and use an app for imaging. And all right, we're now at the booth of Daking Night Vision. Let's go in and take a look at what they have. They got to do with a fast high cut here. Okay, looks like they have several digital devices here. Interesting. And what looks like, yeah, thermals. Thermal devices, monoculars, camcorder-like devices. And this looks like a head-mountable unit. Interesting. 对，请问这个是你们那个头戴热成像是吗？了解。那这个分辨率多少了？384吗？
是吧？这个都小的。
了解。应该是那个384Yeah, so a head-mountable 384 by 288 unit with what looks like a laser pointer to the left of the lens from this perspective here. Interesting. All right. Looks like they also have, digital, CMOS digital night vision devices. Some analog units, more digital binoculars. Yeah, not particularly interesting, but this is what we go to Daking for. And here we have their analog intensifier tube units. Yep, they have monoculars both for the the 10-130 and the Russian short 43 by 22.5 millimeter. We have, and also as well as quads. They have a functional quad somewhere here. And also the PVS 7 style bioculars, which look really swagger. Yeah, monocular is up there. And yeah, more quads. Let's take a look at some of their units. All right, let's take a look at their quad. All right. So looking through their eyepieces, yeah, the 2-image fusion is actually pretty good. The image stitching effect is done pretty well, and the optical quality of the eyepiece seems to be pretty good as well. Yeah, not bad. All right, and this is the left pod. Image stitching again is not too shabby. Actually, pretty decent. Nice. 感谢啊。
好。
Yep, and now we have one of my favorite categories of devices, bioculars, because they just look so baller. We have one of their, biocular Russian short tube bioculars here, and let's take a look at the. Yeah, one immediate thing I've noticed is that their bioculars are actually pretty good. I mean, notice for one the lack of, chromatic aberration even on high contrast scenes like this. The edge distortion is controlled really well, and if I have to give it, if there's one con, is that it has a little bit of a fisheye effect. Just a little bit. If we take a look at straight lines in the scene, at the edges, you can start to see that it has a little bit of a fisheye effect. Yeah, right around here. Yeah, right around here, right at the extreme edges. But otherwise, the optics on the Daking biocular, is surprisingly good. Yeah, edge distortion almost non-existent. Eye box is surprisingly good for biocular. There is no chromatic aberration, almost none anyways, on a white phosphor tube. Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, I want one. All right, so here's another interesting device from Daking. So this may look like just a regular, biocular with some really fancy, illuminators on either side of the device, and also two separate control knobs and a button on top. But it's got this many controls because here, look at this. It's got a video out. It's got a video output port here, which means somewhere inside this unit is a little camera module, a CMOS camera module. So I'm basically suspecting that, you know, you got your tube here, a prism behind it, and instead of just splitting, you know, the image to your two eyes, there's also a third path where it splits the image to, I don't know, some CMOS camera somewhere, and it outputs a signal here. That's interesting. You basically have, you know, all the controls to actually, you know, control not only the tube, not only, you know, the tube and the illuminator, but also the video signal output device. But yeah, that's really interesting. All right, and now we are at the booth of Lindu. Let's take a look. 好的. Looks like a magnifier, a EOTech-like holographic sight or a reflex sight or a prism sight, whatever they are. We got mounts, G24 style here, J-arm mount, Norauto style, nice. We got a PVS 7 style, you know, biocular, along with what looks like a Russian short format style monocular. And yep, more binoculars. Yep, and a true binocular. Ah, they're new PVS 14. 这些请问都是有装管子的吗？
有装管子。
了解 ，nice. So we got our PVS 14. Their PVS 31 clone. Interesting. More biocular. 这个 looks like a BNVD, you know, 1431 style device, and as well as a quad.
这俩还能用，也不用都在，这几个都成品。
Nice. 哎，这个可以试一下吗？
可以。
你可以看看这个挺有意思的。
这是个热融合的。
对，这是Lucie热融合那个。
对。
And this. Oh yeah, this is an interesting device from Lindu. That is their fusion device. 也是真相管，你们是装什么管子的嘞？
装的是。
也是国产2代吗？
国产2代加的相管。
Nice. So it has a thermal module, you know, a thermal imaging module, as well as a NNVT second generation tube. All right, let's take a look at it. All right, and I think these are the two most interesting devices here at Lindu. This is their Lucie style 50-degree field of view thermal fusion biocular. You have a thermal unit over here. 对了，请问你们这个热成像的分辨率是多少？384吗
？384乘。
Okay. So they have a 384 by 288, you know, thermal module here, and you have a, you know, intensifier tube inside. The Lucie style uses a atypical 10160 format, which is a 10160 without a fiber optic inverter, so you can't just slap a, you know, 10160 tube inside and let it and get it to work, because this requires a special tube that's on the same size as a 10160 but without a fiber optic inverter. But yeah, it's really interesting. And here we have a PVS 7 style fusion device. Again, same. And this is PVS 就是40度市场角的，对吗？
对，这个是40度，那个是50度。
了解。So yeah, the PVS 4 style has a 40-degree NV field of view, along with also a 384 by 288 thermal fusion module. And yeah, that's basically it. And what's worthy of note is that the IPD, interpupillary distance, on the PVS 7 device is actually adjustable. So that's pretty cool. 这个 Lucie 的瞳距就没办法变了吗？
Lucie 没变，这个就变不了。
Okay, yeah, but the IPD on the Lucie device isn't adjustable, so yeah. All right, now, yeah, why not? Let's also take a look at the devices powered on. All right, so this is the Lucie powered on, of course, with the lens cap on. So obviously we're not seeing the full field of view, but from what I can tell, the center field of view isn't too bad. We just cover the... We just cover all the sensors. Oh yeah, here we go. Here we go. Obviously we have a lens cap on, so it isn't covering the full field of view, 51-degree field of view, but yeah, from what I can see right here, it's actually the center sharpness and everything is not too bad. The eye box is also, yeah, somewhat decent on the Lindu Fusion Lucie. All right. So it's actually not too bad. Interesting, an interesting little device. All right, power off. There we go. Now let's take a look at their PVS-7 style device. Let me just take a look at where the highlight protection, yeah, highlight sensor is over here. Alright. And that's their PVS-7 style device, 40-degree field of view. Eye box is surprisingly acceptable, so whoever their, you know, housing and optics OEM is, I think it's Detto. It's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good. And after that, it's also a Fusion PVS-7. Yeah, desirable. Pretty desirable unit. Okay, so something interesting. Lindu now has a new 50-degree optics set. So, and if we take a look in here, yep, you can notice that even on high contrast surfaces, chromatic aberration is really well controlled. And not only that, well, this is not a full field of view because we have a lens cap on. But from what I can tell, the edge distortion and the edge distortion is not as bad as the LD-NV 016. And not only that, the center sharpness and everything seems pretty good. And also, we just, let me move it over to the edges a little. If you notice the straight lines at the edges, there's no fisheye. So Lindu has really stepped up their game in their, wide field of view optics game. They have really improved their wide field of view optics. This is not bad at all. And remember, this is a white phosphor tube, which, on most cheaper, Chinese optics often come with, chromatic aberration issues, and there's none here. Look at that. All right, and something truly interesting here, AVIC is the parent company behind, all those, plants that build, the J10s and J20s. And they are here at the CIOE as well. And it looks like they have a lot of aviation application thermal sensors and thermal units here. And these look like, your typical, cooled medium wave infrared. Yep. Medium wave infrared, thermal units for aviation use. Yeah, 640 by 512 with a Stirling cooler. Very interesting. Oh, they also have 1280 by 1024 units built on the 15 micron pixel pitch, and as well as, yep, these are more, oh look, we have 128 by 128 detectors here, maybe used for missile seekers. Nice. And we have, older, lower resolution, 320 by 256, 30 micron pixel pitch. Interesting. They're all cooled medium wave infrared units with, a Stirling cooler on the back. Interesting. And now we're going to, high resolution HD. 1280 by 1024 nanometer, 1280 by 1024 resolution, 25 micron pixel pitch. So that's quite a huge imaging area. You see the sensor is to the left of the, bottom left of the unit. Interesting. We're still in medium wave infrared, so now we have a 15 micron sensor. And look at how much smaller the sensor is. Interesting. And now we're going down to 10 micron. 10 micron, and we have the same resolution, and looks like the sensor size didn't really drop all that much, but yeah, interesting. 25 micron, so going back up, and now we have a 640 by 512 resolution. Interesting. Some of them may have been mislabeled because look at this. These two 640 by 512, yet the sensor sizes are completely different. Interesting, interesting. But yeah, these are likely the thermal units that, you know, is going into aircraft like the, you know, J-10, J-20 and missile systems. Very interesting indeed. And of course, you know, being a aviation application, you know, thermals manufacturer, they also need to, you know, make fairings, you know, multispectral fairings that is transparent to both, you know, visible light as well as medium and long wave infrared. And let's look at, you know, what those sensors can actually see. So this is the Indium something. This is their medium wave infrared 1280 by 1024 sensor. Cooled, of course. You can hear the cooling system ticking away in the background. Let's see if we can get ourselves to show up on it. Yo, what up? Yep, interesting. And this is their also 15 micron 1280 by 1024 sensor. Let's see if we can get ourselves to show up on it. Hey, what up? What up? That's me. And a 640 by 512 sensor. Very interesting. Yeah, these are all units. These are all, you know, thermal imaging systems that will be put into aviation applications. Interesting. This is interesting. So we now have, you know, entire wafers of really large format thermal imaging sensors over here. Yeah, here, let's take a look at this. They have a 2K by 2K sensor that looks like a single wafer can only produce 4 of those chips. That is crazy. Look at that. 2K by 2K, 25 micron. That's got to be one of the most sensitive, you know, thermal devices out there by far. And look at how massive it is. All right, so a little correction to what I just said. These are the readout circuitry for the thermal imaging system. So yeah, the thermal imager will also be as big as this, but you know, it's going to be another, you know, it's going to be, you know, created from another wafer and stacked on top of it. So what we can say now is that AVIC, you know, is now making stacked thermal sensors. And that's just really cool. Really fast readout speeds and probably really high frame rates too. Interesting. So yeah, just to clarify, this is the circuitry underneath the, you know, thermal sensor that will read out, you know, each individual pixel. You know, the thermal sensor that is after it's, you know, after it's fabbed on a wafer, you know, gets cut off from the wafer and gets stacked on top of this.
All right, and that's it for this trip. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed, and see you next time.